everybody. Good morning and welcome to Azure Flash News, episode 76. It is September, Friday the 13th. Oh,
I didn't even realize that until you
And-
just said
and
it.
you know what else? It's a full moon.
Well,
Wow. How about that?
spooky.
Woo! That's why we have the little spooky thing in the
Yeah, yeah.
in the music. So I picked that on purpose. Yeah. So anyway, welcome everybody to Azure Flash News. We're glad you're here,
Yes, thank you for joining.
and we have some good topics today. Kind of a bit of an eclectic mix.
I would say so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, so a little bit about Azure Maps, some stuff about HDInsight, a little bit of space news,
Yeah.
uh, and then some more region news.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, let's dive in.
Yeah. So Azure Maps expanded some coverage. They added coverage for Argentina, India, Morocco, and Pakistan. But that's,
I mean, well,
it is what it is.
maybe you use those areas.
Yep,
You say
maybe.
you don't. But what I think is important here is to understand is that if you did use those regions and you were hoping for them, you didn't have to do anything,
Now it's there.
and now they're there. So I think it bears repeating that it's really important to understand that the cloud is a dynamic platform, and I mean that in the best way. Sometimes that can sound a little scary, that it's changing, ever changing. One time I had a customer ask, would you guys be willing to update us when you guys do Azure updates? And I was like, we do like every day. Like they're like, do you do them on Fridays? I'm like, we're deploying code every day, all day.
Yep.
I don't even know how many, but anyway. So they're like, can we hold off on some of these platform updates if we want to? No, sorry, you can't do that. But anyway, it's really great to know that this thing is kind of like improving for you underneath you, giving you new capabilities. But
I think that's a great point too, because one of the other things that the product group calls out in this is that they are introducing a preview for a data feedback site for you to be able to provide them with feedback, and that's how our improvements really come to bear. Is that our development teams and our product teams really go out to the customers who are using this stuff and ask, what is it that you're seeing, and how can we improve this? And I think that this is a great way for them to get some direct feedback on what could be a point of interest for you and things like that in these areas, and that's really what they're hoping to expand some more on.
Yep. There's also this is kind of a mixed bag on Azure Maps. So, but there's points of interest data updates. So we're going to continue to improve that. There's also sunrise and sunset times.
Could
So
be important.
Yeah, that just takes me back to Fiddler on the Roof. Sunrise, sunset, right? Come on, everybody out there that knows music theater, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't go see Fiddler on the Roof this summer here in Minneapolis at the Orpheum, you missed it.
I missed it. I didn't even know it was there.
Dude, it was awesome. They had this Israeli actor come and do Tab. Anyway, it was awesome. So anyway, back to Azure. I digress.
Styling updates, so we
Yeah.
get better points of interest. So like an airport now renders in different zoom levels better. Train stations, universities, state boundaries will show up in a different way at a different zoom level than they did before. And then we also have blank map styles. I mean, I'm not a maps expert. Do you know why we would want a blank
maybe
map?
you want to put your own style on it. I don't know.
Okay.
But my guess is I got an idea. If you are out there and you know why, because you're a maps person, tweet us.
Yes.
Tell us, because we're not maps experts. Like I wish I were.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
Anyway. Okay. So lots of stuff like the cluster aggregates. So in other words, if you have, I'm thinking of a specific website that runs a lot of this stuff, and they do this clustering here. And so so it's like if you have lots of things on the map and you're zoomed out, you might want to draw a circle on it and say there's 30 of them. But when you zoom in, they start to spread out into single pins.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's just all kinds of stuff. So anyway, if you're a maps consumer application,
go check it out.
You need to go check this out. There's lots of stuff. Geography is such an important part of some applications, and if you want to add some maps to your application, it's pretty easy with Azure Maps. So check it out.
Oh, should we talk a little bit about monitoring on HDInsight?
Oh wait, hold on. I saw one more thing. I thought that was really cool. So additional notable improvements to the Web SDK. you can now pitch the map using touch with 2-finger drag up, drag down, which you probably already took that for granted. I mean, like you may not have known, like, you just kind of go with 2 fingers. Like those of you who are just listening on podcast don't know what means, but
yeah.
that's okay. Put 2 fingers on it and drag down, and it pitches you like you're flying up in an airplane up over it or down so that you're looking at a scant over the, you know what I mean? You don't know what I mean. You've never tried this.
I've never tried that, no.
Wow, you got to try it. So anyway, you just put 2 fingers. Anyway, so there's just some cool stuff here. So anyway, go check it out. All right. Okay. So this next one has to do with HDInsight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's possible that there are people out there that don't know what HDInsight is even. So we might as well just kind of talk about it.
Sure. So HDInsight, you might use it for your big data workloads. I
Yeah.
would say that's probably its primary use case.
Yeah. I mean, it's Hadoop as a service, if you will. I mean, it's kind of simplify it to that.
Yeah.
But it allows you to not worry about building the infrastructure and maintaining it, patching it, whatever. So if you have a big data workload, and we have a close, tight partnership, it's not a secret, with Hortonworks, and it's very tightly aligned with the Hortonworks data platform, HDP. And so you'll notice a lot of similarities there, and that's what HDInsight is. But you might say, well, Tim, how am I supposed to monitor HDInsight on Azure? Do I have to get a custom open source tool to do that?
Well, as with most things, it depends, but not really in this case, because
you went with it depends. I love it.
we offer Azure Monitor, which is a platform solution that ties into our entire platform.
Yep.
And the HDInsight team has been doing a blog series here on how to really get that deep insight into what's happening with HDInsight with the native platform tools that we offer. And so just like you might for your VMs or for your storage accounts, things like that, you can pull these HDInsight logs into Azure Monitor logs and use log analytics on top of them. You can use your same action groups to do your alerting based on events that are happening, based on metrics that you're seeing out of your HDInsight clusters. And that really means that you have a consistent monitoring picture across your entire work set. So whether you're an application developer using App Insights, whether you're the system administrator watching your infrastructure, or whether you're the big data scientist doing the HDInsight stuff, all of those different roles can use Azure Monitor in a way that's working for them, and they can set up their action groups to get them the alerts the way that they need to. Your system administrator might have an ITSM that he uses or an email distribution list, whereas maybe your big data guy is a little bit more of a citizen scientist and he wants to get a text message. Well, with Azure Monitor, you can do all that.
Yeah. So, and I also wanted to point out that this is a series. Maybe you said that, but like this is part 4. I don't know how many parts they're going to have, but like in part 1, it's kind of an overview of the different kinds of things you would monitor on HDInsight, like availability, resource utilization, performance, job starting and stopping. So that's like the basics. And then in part 2, kind of like a little bit more of a drill down on monitoring cluster health. Part 3 drills a little bit more on resource utilization. And then this one covers the logs, a little bit more metrics and logs. And like you said, the logs part specifically is the log analytics piece, and log analytics, if you don't know, is basically kind of like, I don't know, is it Splunk as a service, sort of? Not really, but I mean, if you,
I would say that's a very fair assessment. Yeah.
If you know Splunk, I think you'll see a lot of similarities. Splunk has some dashboarding and some other stuff, and log analytics is a little bit more focused just on the logs, log searching.
But you can expose those through Azure Monitor as a dashboard under your Azure portal. But
so it's split in 2, I guess is all I'm saying.
So okay.
Log analytics itself doesn't do some of the things that Splunk does, but Azure as a platform, I think, covers well what Splunk does. It's just broken in pieces. But anyway, this one is focused on a little bit more of like using log analytics to drill into those raw logs that get flown to Azure Log Analytics.
They also do talk about some of the pre-made dashboards that they have, using Spark, Hadoop, and Kafka from the marketplace, where you can start to pull in some of the stuff and still expose this through pre-made dashboards that we have that will show up in your Azure portal. Show some example queries that you could use. So, I mean, I think that if you're using HDInsight today and you're not necessarily using Azure Monitor on top of that workload, and maybe you do have a different solution that you're using, give Azure Monitor a shot. See what it does.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that you're maybe you bought or paid for Datadog, or I don't even know. There's like probably 500 more
Yeah.
open source-ish monitoring stacks, which is fine. Like honestly, I don't really have a problem with doing that. That's great. Deploy it, monitor, please. Please monitor your workload. But you can also, with very little investment and cost, try out Azure Monitor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big shift if you think about it from like, oh, I need to like do an RFP and figure out which platform, like, what do the licenses cost? How will they negotiate with me? What architecture does it have? What functions, features, functionality does it pull across? Okay, all that's really important, but Azure is a different model from this point of view. It's just pay for what you use. You can turn it on. There's nothing to set up. There's no licensing. So the bar for entry for you to try it out is really low.
Yeah.
Like you can just try it out. And even if it fills a niche that, like, let's say you have a corporate monitoring solution that's, you know, a lot of times these things are a bit old, and there's a team that manages it, and maybe you still want to do that. That's fine. But maybe for developers, and for people close, kind of like your citizen scientist, right? So he or she is more concerned with job performance and like stuff that the corporate IT monitoring solution, like it's a little bit detailed for that system. Like they're just like, is it up? Is it down? Broken? You know?
Yeah.
Like this might be a place for you to have another monitoring solution targeted more towards the users of this, not the users, but the developer crowd.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great point, Mark. And what you're really saying is that gives you flexibility in there. And so the different teams can all set up their own alerts, and they can set up their own action groups and do things the way that they need to.
Yeah.
And you can still have a standard deployed across your entire infrastructure. So
that is so important. Sometimes I think people don't think about that on-prem, a lot of times people say, we need to have one monitoring solution across the whole corporate, which is good. And then they're like, well, we have to install it, we have to maintain it, we have to patch it, we have to upgrade it, we have to pay for it. Like there needs to be a team, a cost center to pay for it. And then we need a team to manage it. This is going to be a challenge. So they develop a team. But in Azure, like those resources become SMEs about monitoring. Like there is no platform that needs to be managed anymore. There's no licenses that need to be bought. There's no cost center that needs to be charged back, because actually the application gets charged for what little charge there is for Azure Monitor. And then there's nothing to upgrade, patch, maintain. So those resources that are now like making sure that the latest copies of the Linux CVE kernel, blah, 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 like that's what they're doing. Now they're going to be helping your application developers monitor their application. They're going to be solely focused on monitoring. And so it's like, it's a real shift to think, and it's okay to have lots of instances of Azure Monitor, because it's a whole platform. It is the one place that everybody can go. And so it's okay if there's lots of instances of log analytics. There's one for the Hadoop. There's one for this. There's one for that. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's one platform, and you can even query across them. So there's no, you don't need to have just one log analytics account. You're going to end up with lots. So anyway, it's a bit of a shift.
Yeah. I think that's a really great way of looking at it, Mark. Anything else?
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay.
Next one I think is really cool.
This next news in space. This is my little space news announcement here.
Well, satellite connectivity for Azure ExpressRoute across the globe. I mean, it is one of those things where you just didn't really maybe consider it before. I mean, we live in a major metro area, and as last time I was on with Rick, we were talking about how Minneapolis is getting its own ExpressRoute connection point, and things like that. So, we don't always think about this, but for some of our rural customers, or for some customers maybe like airlines, I think that we call out,
or an oil rig,
yeah, a place that might not have great connectivity through fiber connections on the land. We're going to start offering satellite connectivity to connect you to ExpressRoute.
Yeah, and I think if you think of ExpressRoute as not a medium, like if you say, oh, ExpressRoute is fiber, now you have to kind of back it up and say, no. ExpressRoute is private connectivity.
Yes.
And so if you have private connectivity and you say, I want to be able to not use the public internet to communicate, then that's ExpressRoute. And now we have two ways to do that. Fiber, AT&T, you know, CenturyLink, NetBond through AT&T or whatever, like kind of a MPLS style.
Yep.
Now there's another one which is completely a different medium, which is satellite. And so it might make a lot of sense to provide express route connectivity. Like I know that people are doing a lot of disconnected scenarios on oil rigs. This might actually mean that for some of those sometimes connected, you can treat them more like always connected. So I know that the cloud is a ways away. It's not on-prem. You can't go hug those servers. But investment in your network connection can get you a long ways to not having to worry about that.
Well, and I think that, the thing that you're going to see out of this is some of the great stuff that ExpressRoute offers you. So like you were saying, you get that encapsulated private connection where your traffic is your traffic. You're not going out over the internet. You're going to get that fast and predictable network service. That's really one of the real keys about ExpressRoute. So like you said, don't think of it necessarily just as your connectivity, but ExpressRoute gives you a defined path that you're continue to take over and over again, so that you don't have to worry about, well, maybe today I'm going to take this route across the internet, and my latency goes up by 30 mil. So
yeah. The other thing this doesn't say, but could you use this as a DR strategy? Like in other words, to protect you from it would be a completely different DR route to the internet. Like you could say, not only do we want to have ExpressRoute fiber, but maybe we would want to have a backup satellite connection from our facility, so that if somebody ditch switches the fiber out back, we have, like maybe a hospital or something. I don't know. Anyway,
well, I think that the hard part is, so the way that the satellite would work is that you would still have your fiber running out to one of our partner services ground stations that's relaying up to that. So that's an interesting thought. I wonder.
But if it's oil and gas, if they're saying oil rig, that wouldn't have a fiber. I don't know. Anyway,
that is a great point.
It's an interesting idea. I don't know. It's just an idea. Thinking on the fly, which is a bit dangerous.
Especially when we're broadcasting live.
If you think that I'm crazy, tweet me. It happens all the time. I'm used to it. Anyway, just an idea. So anyway, check that out. That's kind of an interesting scenario. It's a bit niche. But it could be kind of cool. I can think of some disconnected factories. Like I know of a certain large type company here that has factories all over the world in very remote areas. They are disconnected today, but with satellite connectivity, they can become more connected to the cloud, because they have granaries and packing plants that are in rural areas across the whole world. So you can sort of imagine a new connectivity method. Anyway.
So I actually want to go back, because I think that you might be right, Mark, that you could do it this way, because I had interpreted this a different way, but there's an image that I'm putting on the screen for those of you who are
if you are
listening.
If you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah. But so what we have on the left would be the customer site. So whether that's your boat or your plane or your oil rig, as we were discussing, or maybe a hospital, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
And based on this image, what it's showing is that connects to the satellite, which then connects to the ground station, which connects to ExpressRoute. So I actually think that we connect to the ground station, and that if you had a satellite potentially going up to, or you had your own, whatever you would call that, the satellite, dish. Right? Yeah, the dish pointing up and
it's a dish.
Bloop, 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 So
I think it does go bloop, bloop, bloop. I think it does. I think it does that.
That is a scientific term.
Yeah.
So I think maybe you're right.
If you think about it, if you think what you were saying, that maybe it wouldn't work is because the last mile of fiber might still be your weak point. That's what this replaces.
Yeah.
It replaces the last mile. So in other words, my guess is it wouldn't be surprising if the oil rig that's offshore uses satellite to get to, let's say it's in the Gulf. It uses the satellite to get to Houston.
Yeah.
And then from Houston, it takes fiber.
Yeah.
Right. So in other words, that last mile connectivity is over satellite.
Yeah.
Anyway,
awesome.
I don't know, kind of crazy. But maybe if you think a little less crazy and think, wait a minute, hold on, this could be useful to me. Anyway. Okay. Well, here we go again. I feel like I'm Britney Spears. I did it again. No. We didn't. Not oops. But we're continuing to announce new regions. This time, Deutschland.
Deutschland, yeah.
Auf Deutsch. Jawohl, mein Herr. So anyway, we have additional German cloud data centers that are being announced.
Mhm.
You know, it's just really important to understand that for a lot of companies, they are global enterprises and they need presence in all of these different countries. And it's very useful to either regulated companies in Deutschland
Mhm.
that need to stay there, like that's useful. But if you have a subsidiary there and you need local presence for your infrastructure, you don't have to go out and do a colo deal and move a bunch of hardware. Like you can just say, I want some of this German stuff,
Mhm.
and just go get it.
Well, and I mean, I think that that's a great point, Mark, because we do call out several of our customers here. So we got Deutsche Bank, Deutsche Telekom, SAP, and Novardo Systems. You know, Deutsche Bank, obviously, financial services, they're going to be heavily regulated and all that. But then you've got other customers that can now use this as well, because as we know, GDPR became a thing a couple of years ago, and more we're seeing individual countries and individual locations start to drive their own compliance needs. And what we're seeing is that Azure continues. I mean, I was on the show, I think, a month ago with Rick, and we had Switzerland. And so we continue to offer you more and more locations. And this isn't just Azure. This is Office 365 as well, or Dynamics 365 with our
Yeah,
Power
that's right.
Platform.
Yep.
So if you are in a regulated industry, or if you're in Germany and you need to comply with some of the new German regulations, you can now do that with Azure.
Now, wait a minute, hold on. You said Deutsche Bank. I thought nobody in financial services was using cloud.
Well,
Oh, well, not true.
that
If Deutsche Bank can use it, so can you.
yeah.
You can figure it out. We can do it. Yeah, so this is a good one. It's kind of these new data center region announcements are becoming a little more mundane because it's kind of happening all the time.
Yeah.
And we have, I think, Sweden or Norway has some kind. Anyway, it's just like we're really expanding our geographic footprint. It's a real strategic initiative for us to really make sure that we have these local regions. It's a differentiator. So if you need to be there, then Azure is the place to do it.
Well, and I think that one of the things that I always like when you say it is, you know, what did you have to do to take advantage of this?
Did you have to go write some new contracts, or did you have to procure a bunch of hardware, Tim?
No.
No. As a matter of fact, I didn't. So, you know, it's an important part of the cloud to understand that in some ways, the sooner you get in and get started, the sooner you can accrue these benefits of not having to do stuff, of offloading the maintenance, upgrades, patching of all of just the hardware to start with. Like that's a given because you never manage that anymore. But then there's so many other layers like monitoring and I don't know, anything. Backups. I mean, stuff that's like, nobody wants to do that stuff.
Right.
You want to utilize us to make sure that we're responsible for it. So anyway, it's a bit of a short show, but well, no, not that really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's okay.
We'll
give you a little bit of time back.
Yeah, we'll give you 7 minutes back because we know you're busy.
Yes.
Which we're so glad that you would, spend your 20, 25 minutes with us. We know that that's important. We know that your time is important. So thank you very much for joining us. And and you can, Tim, if people want to reach you, where can they find you?
So they can hit me up via email, sullivan.timothy@microsoft.com, or I'm on LinkedIn, one of the 3 Tim Sullivans at Microsoft.
Yeah. So it's like Tim Sullivan Roulette.
Yeah.
You might get this one. There's one in Surface Development.
There's one in the Surface Development.
Yeah, sure, why not? So, but that's good. And if you want to catch me, you can catch me at mgarner on Twitter, or you can catch me through email, mgarner@microsoft.com. Feel free to do that. That's just fine. And don't forget about our Twitter handle. Rick usually kind of manages that. Rick is actually out today. I didn't even say that.
Yeah.
But obviously Rick is out. You can see that. It's Tim. At Azure Flash News, you can catch us there. And don't forget, you can catch the show on YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play as a podcast, and iTunes as a podcast. And we really love those 5-star iTunes reviews. That really kind of helps the profile of the show just a little bit. So if you love the show, go give it 5 stars. If you don't love the show, just send me an email. I'll be happy to take that feedback. No need to put that on Twitter. No need to put that on iTunes. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so I guess that's it. Oh, and thanks
to Emily.
Thanks to Emily for producing the show, and thanks to MTC for hosting us. Yeah. So,
well,
is that it?
As Rick would say.
Yeah. Keep your hands on the keyboard. Oh, no, fingers. Keep your fingers on the keyboard, your head in the cloud. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Bye.